What's going on, my dudes? In this video, I want to look at how we can recreate the array prototype for filter. Cool, yeah. So if you don't know what filter is, basically filter is a function that you can call on arrays that will return a subset of the array based on a predicate. Let me show you. So right now we have an array of words: Dan, stand, man, plan, and long word.
Say that 3 times fast.
Let's say we only wanted words with a length of 3 in an array. Well, we can use the filter function for that. So let's go const filtered words, and we'll go words dot filter, and then we take in a function, and then this function itself takes in each word. It takes in the index. It takes in also the entire array. So let's say R. Cool, so let's just log those for now. Log the word. So it goes through every word, then the index, and then it also takes in the entire array. So cool, so we can see that each loop, it's giving us the single word, the index, and the entire array. And let's just log the result. Log filtered words. Right now it's blank because we're not returning true for anything. But if we returned, let's say word dot length is 3, then it will filter out all words with a length of 3. Cool, and that's basically filter. But what happens if we're in a situation where filter doesn't exist? So let's go array.prototype.filter is null. Let's do it before we call it. Boom, the whole thing breaks. But I'm going to show you how to recreate filter. So let's comment this out for now, and let's start recreating it. So the first thing we want to do is make a function called filter, and we'll assign that to the array prototype, and then we'll give it the filter field. And now when we call filter, this won't blow up because the function exists, but it doesn't do anything. So let's make it do something. So first off, when we use the prototype value, we immediately give context to this. So if we log this, we'll actually see the array we passed through. So undo this, and we see the array. So now we know we want to loop through the array and pass each value to a callback function. So let's give this callback, and we'll loop through the array. So for var I is 0, while I is less than this dot length, because this is our array, I plus plus. Then we want to call callback with the value of this I. Cool, so now we can see that every loop, it's returning the word, and cool, that's pretty much it. So now this predicate will actually be working. So now what we want to do is, if the predicate is true, then we want to add it to a new array. So let's make a new array called, let's say, return array, and that will be a blank array. And then we can return the return array here. So now if we log this, we should get an empty array because we're not adding anything to this return array. But now let's say if the callback passes, then we'll push this value. So I'll push this. Cool, and now we see it's working. So we've actually made a very basic filter, but we're not sending through the index and we're not sending through the entire array. Well, that's really easy.
Actually super easy, barely an inconvenience.
So all we need to do is, when we call our callback function, is pass through I, and then that will give us our index, and pass through this, and that will give us the entire array. And I think we're nearly there. So if we look at the MDN documents for Array.filter, we can see that it does have an optional value called this.arg. And what this does is, let me show you actually what it does. What it does is allow you to pass through another array. Let's make this an array of 1, 2, 3. And now if we log this here, let's remove our filter. So now if we log this, we can see that the array that we defined is being passed through as the this array. And if we didn't pass it, we get the global this argument. So let's try and recreate that as well. So let's put back our array prototype. And what we need to do is allow for a second argument here. We'll call it this arg. And what we can say is, in this for loop, if this arg is not equal to undefined, so we have a value for it, then we'll run the callback.call. And what call does is allows us to pass through a this context. So we can say this arg, and we'll pass through the rest of the arguments. This I is the value, I is the index, and then this as the entire array. Else, we'll run this. And that's pretty much it. We have just implemented filter again. Obviously, we're leaving out a ton of stuff. We're leaving out like checking to see if the function exists. Like this is prone to failure, and I'm sure the actual filter function has way more stuff in it. But this is a functional filter. I also just wanted to point out that the reason I'm using var and that old school for loop is to make this more compatible with older browsers, because it's more likely that they won't have the filter function. Cool. Peace, guys.